About a month ago, I heard the best homily I've ever heard in my life, and ironically enough, it was actually during a weekday. This guy gave a homily during the weekday that was pre-scripted, pre-prepared. Everyone's jaw was on the ground, to say the least, and it essentially was talking about not only the priesthood, why are there not vocations, but also why are there people falling from grace, why are there people falling away from the Catholic faith, why are there Protestants that have all these wild beliefs, why are there so many atheists and agnostics? Let's get right into it. Number one, he gave 5 reasons. Number 1 was materialism. Materialism, by the way, if you actually read real history and not the history we're being told, materialism is brand new. That's only about 50 to 60 years old. Nobody accumulated stuff. You just had one couch forever. You had one car forever. You had a couple outfits forever. You had one small house that everybody grew up in, and everybody went there, and nobody cared that you had a nicer car, or you took a vacation, or you went to this hotel, or you took this flight, or you accumulated a new couch over your old couch. That's why you had plastic covers over the couches, because you're like, this is the only couch I'm gonna buy. And you rolled out the fine china every Sunday. So the first is accumulation of goods. And he went hard into this. He went like, why? Who cares about all these earthly things? Who was it? Steve Jobs that said on his deathbed, I wish I did not accumulate billions of dollars or something along those lines. And he just said, people want stuff. Why do you need stuff? And it's crazy when I actually started to understand that my salvation is the most important thing over another suit jacket, another vacation, a nicer dinner, an extra 10 grand. Yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice to take a nice apartment, a nice vacation and have a really nice apartment. But if I'm outside of grace, or if I am not on the road to salvation, who the hell cares? By the way, I never curse too. I never curse. That's the first curse in a while. Number 1, materialism can be taken back to about the late 1800s, when they started taking men out of the household into the workforce, into the industrial revolution, into the shops and the buildings that essentially made you not farm. You went from farming into this industrial revolution against, I guess, people's will. It was nice. But to be honest, once you took the men out and you put them into the factories, it was only a matter of time that you took the women out as well and you stuck them into an office. And now you have 2 people trying to accumulate and trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to compete with their neighbor about who's got a nicer house and what do you do. And ironically enough, I was listening to this guy because I heard it from my grandfather, is that one of the most powerful things that you can tell someone else about 100 years ago was your son getting accepted to be a priest. And right now you're like, nah. You're like, no, that would be the anesthesiologist of today, the open heart surgeon of today. Is priests then they knew at least 3 to 4 languages: French, Spanish, Latin, English, German, maybe another one like Italian. And they were fluent, and they were brilliant, and they were charismatic, and they were theology experts. Materialism. Number 2 is sexualization of everything. It is everywhere. It's wild. It is wild. As he said, as a priest from the pulpit, and I'm walking around New York City where I literally just saw a woman on a billboard down to my right in Times Square. There's a electric billboard going, huge. It's massive. It's the size of the building. A woman in a bikini. And you're like, oh, you just accept all these things. Go on Instagram, you go on YouTube, you go to the gym, you go anywhere, anytime. You go on a Friday or Saturday night around New York City or any big city. You go to Miami, New York, Boston, Chicago, any of the big cities in the summer on Fridays, and you just go, it is so much, it's in your face, it's crazy. And if you say anything, how dare you, I could do whatever I want. And that's one of the biggest problems is, why are you saying you could do whatever you want? That's like bringing a beer to an alcoholic. That's like bringing heroin to an addict. That's like telling someone who's addicted to gambling, just go into the casino. It's not that big of a deal. You're telling all these guys who already have a fallen nature to just not care, not look. And the sexualization, let alone, and it's soft. It's not even the OFs or the illicit material. This is just so prevalent in the outfits and the mentality prevalent in society. I personally think this is going to be rooted out at one time. Number 3 is the parenting has been, as he said, awful. Most parents have outsourced their parenting to a device, a tablet, to the schools, to a babysitter, to the internet, to streaming devices, to school. It doesn't matter. They've just outsourced. And the problem is not outsourcing the parenting. It's outsourcing the morality, the ethics, the values. You essentially are fighting against the internet every single day. And my brother said this years ago. He looked at me I think it was Easter, and he goes, dude, you have no idea. Yes, it was hard when mom and dad were growing up because there was no cell phones. They didn't know where we were, and we were kind of sneaking around and doing things we shouldn't have been doing. However, now that's in your pocket, and you don't know who is DMing or what they're watching or what they're being influenced by, especially if they go on TikTok or X, Twitter. You don't know what they're looking at. You don't know what crazy ideas. So the outsourcing of parenting, and as he said, it's hard, yes, but that's where you have to bring in more boundaries. Number 4 is no commitment. I fall into this. He said there's only 3 things forever. It was chaste. In other words, you wait for marriage. So you're chaste until marriage. In other words, you're waiting to have intimate relationships. Number 2 is you're chaste forever going into religious life, or chaste forever because you're single. Those were the only options. There was no do whatever you want and drink and date and sleep around and whatever you want, and no commitments to anything. You don't have to commit to an apartment, to a city, to a person, no marriage. I looked at that and I go, you're right. I fall into that category. People are terrified of commitment. What do you mean I have to commit forever? What do you mean I have to potentially suffer in a 1 to 2 year time frame, even though I'm gonna have 40 years of marriage? It's like, no, are you suffering for even a day? Just leave the relationship, leave the job, leave the city. Don't talk to the person, just break up. And as he said in his story, which was unbelievable, someone came up to him and they said, you know what, Father, I'm actually looking to discern priesthood. And he goes, oh, that's great. Let's get you involved and bring you to either the regular Catholic seminary, or you can go to the Dominicans or the Augustinians, somewhere. And he goes, well, you know, I'm still wondering which one. The priest who's given the homily goes, how long have you been discerning this? And he goes, well, you know, a couple of years. And he goes, what do you mean a couple of years? And he goes, well, you know, since I've been 20. He goes, how old are you now? 29. So for 9 years, how many men, and he brought this up specifically to men, how many men are just contagious to commitment, including myself forever? And I caught myself while he was giving this homily a couple of weeks ago. Wow, that's me. I was contagious to commitment. Meanwhile, I'm looking at all my family and my friends. They're all married with many children, having happy lives, whether it's just overjoyous lives, but they're content and they are satisfied by being a good parent. And I thought about myself, I have an allergy against commitment. Number 5 is the spiritual pride. The spiritual pride that you have sin, you don't need to repent, and even if you do repent and you fall back into sin, it's not a big deal. Yes, I have a gambling problem. Yes, I watch sports on Sunday instead of going to church. It doesn't really matter. I'm a good person. I don't need Jesus. I don't need to go to confession. I don't need to go to church. I don't need to repent for my sins. I don't need to confess my sins. I don't need to tell someone I'm sorry. That's the best 5 things I've ever seen on a homily at any time during a Sunday, let alone a weekday when I heard this. But that last one hit me along with number 4, because how many people are walking around just saying, who cares, I got drunk for the last 14 weekends in a row, even though Jesus says, yeah, those people are not going to inherit heaven because of drunkenness. Or how many people are doing psychedelics or mushrooms or pot or cocaine, or watching illicit material, or lusting after someone's wife, or lusting after a woman, or all these women that are saying, hey, listen, I understand that it doesn't matter what I think. I'm going to wear whatever I want, or I'm going to not commit to a guy, or I'm not going to fill my vocation as a mother or a wife. We're all walking around in sin outside of grace. And it goes back, and I'll conclude on this, to number 1, which is we want stuff. We want to accumulate stuff. Why are we so brainwashed? Why don't we accumulate graces in heaven? Fasting, prayer, Bible, That's sacrifice. That's the true meaning of living a saintly life, living a life in persona Christi, like the person of Christ. Obviously, in persona Christi is a priest that becomes Christ when having this is my body, and they're consecrating the host. Christ said, you're going to do all things and more, I think was not the exact quote, but it's right along the line. So that was the best homily. Let me know your thoughts, and what are your thoughts going on in 2025, 2026, all the conversions, all the people coming back to the faith, all the people talking about God, all the people talking about Jesus Christ. I love it. I love the trend. I love the tidal wave that's going on, especially moving back to the apostolic faiths like Orthodox and Catholic. Leave your comments below, subscribe for more videos. I'll talk to you soon.